All right, welcome to the Beauty Business Strategies Podcast. I am Michael Yost, and I'm joined today with a phenomenal friend and great business owner, Sarah McGee. Sarah, how are you?
I'm all right, Michael. It's nice to see your face through the screen today.
Yes, it is. It's great to see you as well. So, Sarah, tell me a little bit before we get into anything deeper. Tell me a little bit just about your business, where you're located, size of business, focus, things of that nature. Give the listeners a sense of who you are.
Sure, my elevator speech. I haven't done this one in a while. My name is Sarah McGee. I own 30 here in Columbia, Maryland. We're between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. We are hair focused. I have done spa and all the things, but we are hair focused. We love a singular focus. I currently have 11 stations and 11 hairstylists. We have grown very quickly over the years. We love what we do with hair. We are Aveda. And we have technically been in business between different versions of who we are my whole entire life. I'm a second generation hairstylist and I love this business and I love what I've created with my team. I have a wild, crazy group and there are, I think, 16 of us and everyone except for one is full time.
Today, we want to talk about an always popular topic, hiring. You can't go wrong when you talk about hiring, and there's always questions, and we are always looking for more info. And again, I think it's great to hear from another business owner because, again, we can get some real boots on the ground, real life, what's happening out there and what Sarah's doing to really try and attract. And so, Sarah, I want to just start right out. When we talked about doing a podcast, this was one of the areas that you especially were like, hey, listen, I'd love to talk about hiring. And especially, what you put in our conversation was how to create a strong hiring pool. So let's kind of start there with the question. When you think about a strong hiring pool, what does that look like to you?
So often I hear salon owners talk about, and I used to feel the same way, where you just hired the warm body and you took whoever could apply. And I hear constantly from people like, I cannot find a hairstylist. I cannot find front desk staff. I can't find people who want to work for me or who want to work in general. And I get that. I do. I'm not saying that every applicant we get is a great applicant for us. But one of the things we've really worked on, and I guess cultivated is the right word, is getting quality hires and quality applicants. I'm really fortunate that we have actually been able to press pause on hiring at times because we are so full and busy, and that we have so many people applying that we get to pick who we want to hire. And isn't that the dream? You get to pick the people that truly fit your culture instead of picking that warm body that might kind of know how to cut hair and might kind of know how to show up to work on time, but most of the time probably doesn't and becomes a difficult person for you. So I think it's just really important to have that piece of the puzzle because it makes your leadership job easier because you don't want to be having to train people on how to show up to work on time, right? Like that should
Right.
already be something that they have instilled in them and that they should already match your core values on many things. I don't want to have to teach them how to behave by my core values. I want them to embody them anyways because that's who they are. But I can teach them how to do great customer service, or I can teach them how to create a great, beautiful blowout. And those technical skills I love to be able to train on because I want who they are to already have matched up with us. Like I want them to want to be in our sandbox.
I love that. So you mentioned the fact, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening, like, hey, how did she create this pool of people? As you talked about, you're saying, man, I have right now you have a strong list of applicants, and that seems to be so opposite of what in general we're hearing. What do you find is the secret sauce when it comes to creating that pool of applicants?
I really think, and I know there's a lot of companies out there talking about right now, a lot of it has to do with how we present ourselves on social media and how we present ourselves in the community. It doesn't just have to be how you are on Instagram. It's also how do you treat the guest in front of you and how does that ripple effect of those words get to other people? I don't go to schools a lot. We don't have a ton of great schools around us, and it's not that they don't have good students in there, but a lot of them don't want to come to Aveda because they're not used to Aveda. We have a lot of Paul Mitchell around us for schools, or they just already have this idea and this notion in their head where they want to go. The right ones at the schools find us. I go in and teach probably about twice a year to the schools, and sometimes go to career fairs. I don't always. I probably should do better at that. But really, I focus a lot on our culture and how we present our culture. Our social media, we have found when we're scrolling through Instagram and paying attention to like how the algorithm works for us, our best liked and most interacted posts are all about my team. It's all about our culture, who we are and what we do. The hair pictures get likes. They come in and are like, "Hey, I saw this picture you posted of this hair and I want this hair." So we get that, but the people who are applying with us are seeing our culture. They're seeing the things I'm posting about what we do that's fun. What makes 30 hair different? What our traditions are. Our crab feast we have every summer is one of those traditions that everyone knows about. And it's a thing where people are like, I want to work in an environment like that. I want a boss who's going to treat me with respect and integrity. I want a boss who's going to care that I feel comfortable and safe at work. And those are important things that we try and really portray. And personally, I am behind the chair probably about 10 to 15 hours a week these days, but my social media, my professional Instagram is super focused on our company and our culture. I post hair probably every third or fourth post, but the majority of my posts are celebrating my team, celebrating our wins, celebrating what your experience as a guest is, and celebrating who we are and what we do. And I think that that really helps people find us
Yeah, I
and know
agree,
who we
actually.
are.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's funny because obviously I follow you, and so it is interesting. Sometimes we don't realize the things that we see and what we're seeing, but you're exactly right. As I think about it now, being a follower, I think to myself, you're exactly right. It's like how often I see way more about who you are, and we'll just say just for this discussion, more about the culture overall of the business and who you guys are and those what's going on and things of that nature, then I really see a lot of the technical side. Not that that's not there, but like you just said, it makes me realize we don't think about sometimes the messages that we send. So I find it interesting, I guess to summarize what you just, were just saying there, it's, hey, listen, we're really making sure one of the things we do is really put out who we are through our social media and really our presence in our community. So the follow-up question has to be, again, just because I think it's something that would be interesting to hear from your perspective, how often are you doing social media? What's that look like?
So I am a little bit controversial and have things a little different. And when we have educators in, they're like, wait, you do what? So it's required to have a professional page if you are a stylist for us or if you're in our training program. I have as part of our broadband or part of our how we track things for those who maybe don't know what broadband is, how we track things and how you get raises and how you grow in our company. One of the metrics is Instagram posts, and they must post twice a week. That is a bare minimum requirement, part of our culture and who we are. Sometimes, like last month, I was sending a reminder to everyone individually, encouraging them, sending them some numbers, and a few of them who already do a really good job with social media, and I can tell it's easy for them. I challenge them to double it. I was like, I challenge you to double it for 2 months and see what happens. See what traction we get and see how it helps us grow our company in different ways. So they're required a stylist individually to do a minimum of 2 a week. I do have our operations manager handles our social media, and she does typically between 4 and 5 posts a week, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, depending on what it is. And then we're doing stories as well. I do contests for the team where they can get a double. So in April for Earth Month, if they did the no wash contest with Aveda for the reel, they got 2 posts for doing one reel. So I do give them some times where they can work with it, but we work really hard to make sure we're getting fresh content out there all the time. And I think that keeps us relevant, not just for the client and the guests, but it keeps us relevant for those who are in the stylist community. And one really big thing around social media, just because it's something that's really I'm very passionate about. I do have a few rules around what their social media can look like. And one of the really big things that I have is we are never, ever in any post that we do ever to shame or mock our guests or our industry. So we are not allowed to do posts and things where we're making fun of somebody for being late all the time, or there's a reel that was out not too long ago, a trend that was like the client who says they want this huge change, right? And then they're like, and I only want this much cut off and this tiny little bit. I want a huge change, but by the way, you can't cut more than a 1/4 inch off, and I don't want any layers or bangs. We all know that type of guest, right? What was a reel that was really popular, and it bit us in the ass because I had 2 clients do that. Excuse my French, but that's what happened. And a client got really upset and wrote a really nasty review about it and thought we were shaming and mocking them. We weren't. It was just timing. But that doesn't need to go out to the universe. And if we're doing that, what does that say about who my company is, my culture? So I'm really strict on our core values should be embodied in our social media and who we are and what we do, because people see that. And when they see that, they see the type of company they want to work for.
Yeah, I love that. And, again, sometimes it's how we learn, right? We learn those things, and sometimes we learn those lessons that way. But I think that's a great share that way. Before we get away from social media, because I think it could be, something for someone listening might want to say, hey, listen, I want to tune in more to what Sarah's doing. If you want to shout out your social media, your Instagram or whatever,
Sure.
why don't you do that? That way, if people listening can go, cool, what's the follow?
Yeah, the salon's Instagram is at 30 hair, all spelled out, 30 THIRTY hair. And then my professional page is Sarah, SARAH, 30 hair, also spelled out. And you'll see all my team from there and things like that. They love getting follows. We sometimes do contests even on them growing their followers and growing their reach. I also, just as a reward, if you need this as an owner, because you're struggling with them getting engagement, at staff meeting, I every so often will pull out 520s and come out to staff meeting, and I've already looked at who's posted the most or who's gotten some really, like somebody got a viral hit. And at staff meeting, I will hand out 20s to people who I feel like they've really worked hard and hustled or embodied our culture and in the heart, because hard work is one of our core values. They've embodied our culture in social media. And I do surprise rewards, and people love that. They love getting a surprise reward. And who doesn't love 20 bucks in cash?
I would love 20 bucks in cash right now. So I'd be down with that. I love that. So, we talked about social media aspect of it really. And again, I think for me to summarize it in my brain is staying with it simply because of the fact that, it's so important to relaying that sense of who you are. And that attracts people seeing your culture and things like that. That's an attractor. What else, when it comes to building that pool of people, what other aspects do you think help to grow that and might be a key part that other people could take something away from?
I think a lot of it goes back to the energy and how you take care of those who are in your building. They all know people, right? And I wouldn't say that not all of my hires have come from knowing someone else. Most of them actually haven't. But when they all get together, because we know hairstylists talk, and we know we all have our friends from hair school. I've been out of hair school for 20 years, and I still am girlfriends with several of my hair school classmates. We talk, right? We talk about what our companies do for us, what happens when you have a tragedy, and how does your boss handle it when you're not the boss. Like as an employee, you're talking about those things, and I think that energy put out to others and hearing what that's like, that comes back around, and people hear that and they see that. I didn't know until recently, one of my stylists moved here from Virginia, and her really big thing was she wanted to stay with Aveda because she had always been Aveda, but she was very much a stickler for, she wanted a team. She wanted to work for someone who was actually active in the company and behind the chair, because where she had worked prior, the owners were not involved. They didn't really show up. They had massive turnover on their managers. And those were things that were really important to her, to feel like a family and a team, and to have her boss and the owner truly be a part of things. So to me, being active and posting about that, that's how she found us. And she has been with us for 3 years this June, and she sings our praises. I would say at least once a month, one of her posts is about that, and is about the culture of our company and how she feels so grateful to work with us and to be a part of our team. And she hustles because of that, because there's a buy-in to belief of our culture and who we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's take this a step forward now. We've got to, you share some great things about building a pool and starting to try and grow a base of applicants and how to attract, and that's really working for you. So let's move forward to the idea of, all right, now it comes time that you are ready to hire. You've reached that point where it's like, yeah, you know what? I have the need. I have the opportunity to hire. I'm looking for someone. Give us a little bit, knowing that, again, your business and being familiar with your business is a team-based, business itself. Talk to me about what just the hiring process looks like for you. And we don't have to go into, again, I know that we can get a lot of detail, but give us the 30,000-foot view of what does a hiring process look like for you when it comes now to saying, hey, listen, I've got 3 or 4 people, want to find that right match for my company. What does that look like?
Sure. I was actually just talking about this with a friend who just recently opened a massage therapy business, and we were chatting about what this looks like. So, no matter what position you're applying with us in, first off, we have a resume upload spot that they can do on our website, and or they could email it into us or stop by. I just had someone stop by this week with their resume. Once I receive their resume, I send them a Google form that is a specific stylist or front desk assistant role application. They're two separate forms. Those forms have basic things on them, such as what their available hours are, what they're looking for pay wise, what their background is. I ask for their social media handle. And then I actually have two other segments that talk about things such as what is their connection to the beauty industry or what is their customer service background. I ask them what products they currently use because that gives me some good insight into them. And I ask for their references. Once I see that, I can decide, is this even somebody that's going to be an opportunity for us? Or do I need to kind of have that conversation on, hey, right now you're applying for a position that we need nights and weekends, and you're looking to only work 9 to 12 Monday through Thursday. And so I can kind of say, hey, love that you applied, but this isn't going to be a fit right out of the gate unless you're open to being more open on schedule availability or things of that nature. And then we get into doing an interview. I like a phone interview for the desk team, and I like an in-person interview for the stylist team for the first official interview. The desk team is because I want to hear their phone voice, and I give them specific instructions on, here's my phone number. We set a date and a time, and it is their responsibility to call me. I want to see that this person can time manage and can be responsible enough to pick up the phone and call me. Just as simple. And I want to know that they can read instructions and follow through on it. The stylist side, we set a time, they come in and meet with me. First interview is always with me because I really try and get a read for who they are and what they believe in. So our first real interview is all about culture and about who they are, what they believe in, and what matters to them in life. What's their priority? If they get through that first interview, I normally can tell. I've been really good over the years. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. I normally can tell by the end of the first interview if they're going to be somebody that works for me or not. Even if I give them a second interview, I can typically tell you if they're going to make it. And I actually have a pretty good instinct on how long they're going to stay in my company. It's been a little weird and eerie over the years. I guess I've been doing it long enough to start to see some things. My second interview after that is typically a shadow interview. And we have them come in and we jokingly say, you're coming to play in our sandbox, and let's see if you like what the sandbox looks like. Let's see if our playground that you're coming to has the slide that you want to slide on, or do we not have any slides and your favorite thing to do at the playground is a slide. Think back to when you were a kid, like you had that favorite playground. Are we the right playground for you? Do we treat each other the way that you want to be treated? And if not, that's okay, because interviewing is a two-way street. And then after that, if we really like them, we like how they operate during that, we typically do a third interview. It really depends on the situation as to how we go about that. Sometimes it's back with me again because everyone's met them at the shadow. I always make sure it's a very busy day for the shadow so they can see us at our quote unquote worst or busiest, because if you can tolerate that, then you're good. Third interview, if I'm still unsure or feel like culturally I'm not really sure, or maybe their work ethic might not match up, I will bring in two of my leadership team and then somebody specific that works on the same side of the field, whether front desk or a stylist, and have them do an interview. And they'll do a smaller interview. We pinpoint questions ahead of time, and we encourage the interviewee to bring questions for them. I jokingly say, listen, they have to be honest because they're being paid to be honest. So when you interview with them without me in the room, I want you to ask them the tough questions that you're scared to ask the boss. Please go ahead and ask it because they will tell you the truth. And I know that. And if they don't belong here either. And we kind of always laugh about it, but I really want them to have that piece of the puzzle for them. And sometimes it's nice to take the pressure off the boss being there. If I already feel comfortable and happy with where things are, and everybody says, yes, this person seems like a winner, I'll typically do a third interview of coffee or even take them to breakfast or lunch. I want to see how they treat the server. I want to see how they handle the situation. Do they know how to put a napkin on their lap? Which seems silly, but little etiquette things, or do they know to not be mean to the server who forgot our water? Or how do they respond, right? And in that interview, a lot of times we really just are talking logistics. We're talking about schedules, we're talking about training program, we're getting to know each other even better, but we're also talking about company culture and laying a lot of the framework so that on day one, they are not surprised when I tell them, if you are late for work more than 3 times in a month, you will not get bonus. And if you continue to be late, you will not work for me. I am very strict about some rules, and I try and lay that framework during the interview process. And I let them know a lot about our culture, how we pay, and what we do during that process.
I love that. So again, a lot of clarity that goes on through that whole entire process. Here's a couple things that just kind of hit me as you were giving us that bigger overview. Are there one or two questions for you that you always ask that you find, man, I get great, this is what I'm looking for. Again, just thinking about sharing a question or two with the audience that's listening in to be like, what's a cool interview question that you might use and why do you ask it? Because what are you looking for out of it?
Yeah, so my number one question that I ask everyone is, give me 3 words to describe yourself. And by the way, the interviewee normally hates it because it's not easy. But I want to see them kind of be a little uncomfortable because so often in interviews, everyone's like, I'm so good. I don't have any bad faults. I can do everything beautifully and perfectly. Okay, well then tell me 3 words about yourself and tell me why. And think about it, Michael. It takes a minute. It takes a minute to think about what are the 3 most important words to who I am and what I do. I love to see if they happen to possibly align with our core values. And I don't blatantly tell them our core values before I ask that question. So I'd love to see what they are. I'll poke some questions and kind of poke at those answers when they give them to me, to just find out a little bit more. Like, tell me a story about why you feel that being respectful and respect is an important word for you, and that's who you are. So that's probably my number one question that I always ask. I know I do. Every so often, I will ask them about management and leadership, especially if they've worked in other salons or if they've been around the block a few times when it comes to jobs. I will ask them what type of leadership style is best for them. How do they do best with constructive criticism? Are they someone that needs it in writing? Are they someone that needs to have that conversation and then follow up a day later because they need to process that and think of it? And I'll ask questions around that just so I can understand, like, if there's somebody who is completely different than my leadership style, that doesn't mean I'm not going to hire them, but it means that I'm going to also be very intentional in my leadership with them. And I'm also going to be upfront with them on, this is my style and I'm going to try and meet you where you are, but I'm going to ask that you also meet me a little bit and we work together to make sure we both succeed.
Awesome.
And
Is
a
there
little
one?
side note,
Yeah, go
for
ahead.
those of you who are struggle with interviewing and feel like it's a hard thing for you, I actually encourage you to contact your local high school and offer to come in for their interview day. In the state of Maryland, where we are, the high schools are required to do that they do a resume and then they do an interview day, and they require it. The county we're in is junior year. My daughter's county is sophomore year. It is, first off, it is amazing to give back in your community. But I rapid fired in under 2 hours, 12 interviews. And it taught me a lot about questions to ask. And it also just got me in the community getting comfortable with waiting for them to respond because they're teenagers and they're like thinking through how to respond. But it gets you comfortable with a lot of the interviewing process. And it's kind of that double whammy. You're giving back, but you're also learning and learning how to interview. And I have taken away a lot from it. And actually, I've gotten applicants out of it. I've gotten hires from going and doing that from kids who were planning on going to college. They remembered me and came back later on. So I highly encourage that for multiple reasons.
That's a cool, I love that recommendation. That's a cool tip. So again, check out your area. Maybe locally you have something like Sarah's just talking about. It's a great way to, again, refine your skills, but also who knows where it leads down the road. You mentioned, which intrigued me, you mentioned the fact that, for the most part, at the end of the first interview, you probably have a pretty good idea about if this is going to be someone that's, that comes on or not. Is there one trait that you might look for, or what's that one thing you might be looking for that gives you that feeling of like, yep, this looks like a win, or no? What's that one thing?
So I could, of course, say all 6 of our core values and say any of those would, there's a humbleness that I look for because we are a team. We're not meant for egos. We check our egos at the door. That's not who we are. So a humbleness of someone applying, saying, I want to grow, because growth is a big part of who we are. When they're talking and they're talking about how they're so good, they're so great, all their clients follow them, this, that, and the other. That's great and all, but what happens when you have a tough guest? What happens when you're running behind and you have to figure it out for the day? Or what happens when you're having a bad day and you still have to come to work and Sally Sue is difficult? Are you still going to be able to give your best experience? And what happens when maybe you don't know what you're doing? Are you going to ask for help? Or if somebody else needs help, are you going to take over and like overshadow the stylist that was originally booked with that service while you're trying to be a team member and help? Or are you going to step back and just give that assistance and help? That humbleness also typically can tell me, are they willing to do the laundry? Are they willing to help clean out the hair traps underneath the sink? Because that typically, if with an ego, sometimes you're not willing to do the tough stuff.
I love that. So again, that's so beautiful. And again, tying into the things you're looking for, things that fit your values and the traits. Like you said, when everything isn't perfect, in the example you gave, when everything isn't perfect, what are we going to react to? How are we going to react to that because again, everything every day, as we all know, is not perfect. Right. As we wrap things up, is there one last thing you'd like to share that maybe is in your brain that we haven't talked about? So that last 30-second tip or that last thought, anything that you are like, man, I really wanted to make sure that people, as we think about hiring, this is that one last thing.
So hiring is a lot like dating. And for those of you who have dated, you know that the first and second date, normally you're putting on a front for them, right? You're wearing your best clothes that they feel good in. Like they do a lot of things that you wouldn't always show up the same way. Not everyone is authentic right out of the gate and willing to show who they truly are. They put their best face forward. It's part of why we do multiple interviews, because I want to see how they show up. Do they get more comfortable and then they become more of who they are? And do the wheels stay on or the wheels fall off during that process? So to me, it's really important to play the long game, because the long game typically means success in retention. And I don't know my exact stats, but I have super high retention. I know that. The only reason people don't work for me is because we're not the right culture for them. And so for me, making sure I take that long game to make sure that they truly belong in my company, even if we are in dire need of someone, we do not have somebody answer the phones. I am not grabbing that warm body. I am going to suck it up, figure it out, maybe work those extra hours or find somebody on the team who can kind of step into that place and play the long game to make sure that person truly belongs with us. Because every time I do a new hire in our company, it actually costs us about $15,000. $15,000 to hire someone new because of the amount of training and benefits I put into them right out of the gate. So I want to make sure I'm spending, that's a good investment. I don't want to throw that money away. That's not fair to myself, to the clients, or to anyone else on the team. So play the long game and know who you are, and don't be afraid of being honest during the process. We tell new hires during the interview process, it's not always easy working for us. One of our core values is hard work, and it is going to be the truth. You're going to work hard here. You are going to get uncomfortable and have growth in our company, but you will be wildly successful and you will surpass anything you've ever dreamed of doing while working for us.
That's awesome stuff.
And that scares
Sarah,
a lot of people.
Yeah, it does, but I love it because that's part of what I think attracts already, if you're listening to this podcast or if you're watching this, on YouTube and you're looking, you can feel the passion and sense what this is about. And that's such a magnet. Maybe some of you are going like, well, wonder what I might want to go work for Sarah right now, but that's it. That's the attractor. That's that magnet that I just mentioned. So Sarah, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us and share just these cool things around hiring. We really appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'm happy to answer questions. And I will tell you, strategies changed the game for me. So it's worth the investment and it's worth the chance to check them out and learn from them, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate those kind words. And if you are interested in any kind of follow-up conversation, check out Sarah on her Instagram. You can talk with her. Or if you want to get more into someone really diving in and coaching and working with you, or just having a conversation with you, hit the link below in the descriptor and you'll find a way to connect with one of our great coaches. Just have a conversation could be about hiring or any other aspect of your business that you feel like, man, I want to see some growth and improvement in. So until we see you at the next podcast, have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again for listening to the Beauty Business Strategies podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to hit follow to learn more about how strategies can help create more fun, profit, and growth potential for you, your company, and your team. We invite you to schedule a free 60-minute strategy session by clicking the direct link in the description of this episode.